This podcast is brought to you by SeatGeek. Our friends over at SeatGeek are giving us a promo code of TBA Wrestling. That is TBA Wrestling for $20 off your first purchase. Enjoy the show. Welcome to Gunners Rust Podcast, where we are positively Arsenal. And that we are, and it is Monday. It is episode 1 of 2 this week, as always, here on iTunes and Spotify. You can get 4 or 5 over on the Patreon. That was included this week with a preview to Wembley. So this will be the review of Wembley, obviously, to everyone. And if you do want previews going forward, obviously go to the Patreon, things like that. But I think we kind of just got to get into it. I think maybe don't go too deep into advertising the Patreon or anything like that. I think we just, if you're here, it's because you're an Arsenal fan. You're probably here looking for answers. As I am, so I'm going to talk out my feelings. And I don't think it's as negative as we think. I think the Twitter sphere, if we could call it that, make us kind of, it's almost like catastrophize things. And I think you got to kind of zoom out, as we do on the podcast, and kind of just go, all right, well, what happened? Why did it happen? And then you can kind of then look deeper into the, probabilities and, having a bad day. Is that kind of, I'm not going to say, because we can kind of look at like tactics, we can look at stats, we can look at the eye test. And then beyond there is kind of our feelings. And our feelings are all it's just, we don't know where they're going to take us. For example, you could go, well, we lost that one. Chances are we're not going to lose another game for another 6 or 7 games because we keep going on long runs after we lose. Again, we don't know until it happens. But yeah, that's a great way to look at it. So, for example, we're going to go through all those different things. And we're going to start with the cup final. I think majority today, it's pretty much going to be all cup final related. Joe and I on Wednesday, it's international break. We'll get Joe's thoughts on Wednesday. And we're going to do a game, the shirt game. If we can name, we're going to go back and forth 1 to 50 if we can name a player in each shirt. Basically. And our friend Jack has obviously, he sent the Excel sheet. I can't look at it because obviously I don't want any kind of hints, but we need to kind of figure it out as we go. But here we are. This is, I'd say that, I think actually we might have to write it down previous, so instead of doing that live on the air. Anyway, we'll worry about that on Wednesday. The cup final. So I think we all felt, and I did on the preview show, I kind of said, the problem with it, I think we can beat most people over 2 legs. I think in any given Sunday final environment, I truly believe it's 50-50. Maybe if we were playing Sunderland, no, obviously no disrespect to Sunderland or Brentford or someone, like a very good team, but we know we're better than. With City, I think we don't know who is better yet, because obviously the easiest way to decide who's the actual best team in the league, no matter what Bernardo Silva says, is whoever wins the league is usually the best team. Because over 38 games, it can't be that wrong. In a cup competition, teams can play badly and still win the cup. And also could be a team from the Championship or lower down the Premier League who have lost a lot of games, but they happen to win all theirs in their run-in. So the Premier League will decide who actually is the better team. But with the Man City Arsenal situation, we just don't know who is better yet because the season hasn't ended. But it's as even as it gets. I think we know we're better than anyone below City this year, because I don't think we can actually finish any lower than second now. But also just we know we are. So this one makes it very 50-50 who's going to win. And I think going in, we just felt, I don't think we felt confident, but there was an air of invincibility that I think had overcome Arsenal fans to a point where maybe we thought we couldn't be beaten, or maybe believed our own hype. And I've said on the podcast all year, I don't think we're not as good as what people think we are. And then at certain times, I think we're better than what people have us down as. When people say corner, set piece FC or corners or dark arts FC and we are ruining football, all this kind of stuff. I think people aren't giving us credit for what we are. I think we're a lot better than what that is. But then the other side is the same pundits sometimes on a week-to-week basis will change their mind and they'll say, there's no better team in the world currently than Arsenal. There's literally no one can hold a candle to Arsenal. And you're thinking, No, we're not that good. Do you know what I mean? Like, PSG are very good. Bayern Munich are very good. Yes, we beat Bayern Munich, but again, on a one-off basis at the Emirates, we won. Does that make us better than them? I don't know. City themselves, do you know what I mean? So I don't really abide to either of those, that we're world beaters, that we're the best of all time or anything. And again, as I said on the podcast, the quad wasn't a real thing, especially among Arsenal fans. The longer we stayed in things, the happier, just because you can kind of keep that aura, hype, invincibility cloak, and I said invincibility, not invisibility, which some of our players did use yesterday, which we'll get into. That kind of prolongs, and they kind of believe their own hype, and that can kind of sometimes get you over the line a bit. So the longer we went, the better. I kind of said that 2 weeks ago I felt like this was the giant mental edge, this game, that could have ramifications. Then I kind of changed my mind this week, where I thought, you know what, I don't think it does. I think it's just a one-off. I think it's a one-off game. Whoever wins, wins. Whoever loses, loses. And I don't think it will linger with either team. But having watched the manner of it, I've maybe changed my mind again. And again, if we won it, would I have changed my mind to, I think now is the mental edge, we're better than them? I don't know. But maybe because we're on the negative side of the fixture, maybe now I'm going, yeah, I think it does have a mental edge. Maybe I was always going to feel this way, because a loss is a loss. And we haven't felt loss much this season. That was our 4th loss in 50 games, which is bizarre. This is how many games the Invincibles in all competitions lost 4 games. If we ended up not losing again in the league and winning the Champions League and winning the FA Cup, for example, we will win the same amount. We would lose the same amount of games as the Invincibles and actually win more trophies. So that is still available. That's all we care about. And again, like I've said for many a month, the only thing we really care about is the league. The league is everything. It doesn't matter about these other ones. I would love to have won the Carabao Cup, like I said yesterday. Put that in the back pocket and just forget about it. Like, enjoy it last night, and then if we had won it, I think I'd be enjoying the content last night. I'd be enjoying a bit of content today. I'll be kind of just talking about it here on the pod. And then I think I'd almost just be like, all right, forget that happened. Remember it at the end of the season, because if you win that league, you can go, oh, it was a double, And here's the thing is, if you win the Premier League, people go, wow, yeah, fair play. If you win that double of that in the Carabao, no one really cares. That's the big thing that you have to kind of remember it, as long as we can get this league over the line. People go, yeah, but that's not a proper double. It's just a double of sorts. The Carabao Cup isn't that important, and I don't want to discredit it, but because I really wanted to win it. I did really want to win that cup. In my lifetime, we've been to 3 finals, won 1, lost 2. When you look at the manner in which we lose them as well, I mean, that was, I would say, the last 3 Carabao Cup finals have been 3 of the worst watches in my Arsenal kind of history. Just not turning up. I mean, the Birmingham, it wasn't that we didn't turn up, but the way in which we folded and gave away the goals, and then that City game in 2018 was, dare I say, the worst game I've ever watched, because of just the lack of belief. And what was troubling was yesterday there was little hot spots of moments, where kind of went, oh, this feels like that again. And I didn't expect this team to do it. But I will talk through this and I'll explain how maybe it's just a part of the process. We have to accept that football teams lose matches. When Man City lose a game in the league, or they draw to West Ham, we catastrophize and, oh, they're done, they're cooked. Then they win the league and Pep's running around with his daughter, and it's a lovely scene for City fans. And he's like kicking hoardings and that's how excited he is about winning it. And then you go, oh, maybe they're back, And then let's say in 2 weeks they come back, they lose to Liverpool, they lose to Chelsea, and everyone goes, oh, they're cooked. All they want is a Carabao Cup. Who cares about the Milk Cup? It's all kind of, you can't really overanalyze it until the end of the season, because if all City win is that, it'll be seen as a failure. If they go on to win the FA Cup, and for example, if they win the league, they win a domestic treble, then it'll go, they'll go from people thinking they're cooked, and it's a transition to, it was one of their best seasons ever, other than the classic treble they did a few years ago. And that's still on the table for them. But week to week we change. Like I said, 3 weeks ago after the Wolves game, we all kind of accepted they're catching us. And then a couple of weeks later, we kind of went, ooh, do you know what? We have a chance. Then a couple of days later, we went, If they win that and win that, well, they're going to be 1 point behind us, and then we still got to go to Etihad. They're catching us. Then a week after that, we're going 9 points clear. Let's go win the Carabao Cup. So the ebbs and flows, the roller coaster we're on is ever changing. But this one felt like a full stop right before the international. And there's a lot to actually unpack generally around the game, in the game, tactically, injuries, international basis, what this means mentality-wise. There's so much to get into. So, first of all, team news. I think we all I went on the podcast and I said, and team news is going to come down to kind of a giant part of what happened yesterday. Firstly, Kepa in goal. I predicted on the Patreon yesterday that we were going to have Kepa in goal, but I wasn't sure because Arteta is quite a ruthless man. He's someone who does, sometimes take a cold spoke to the wheel. Like he's very much a calculated human that, he knows how important that is. But I think he showed his human side just there, which obviously he's been crucified for. Some would call naivety, but I think he talked about locker room cohesion and what that message sends if he doesn't play him. And I see both sides. Early on in this kind of review, do I think if Raya played that the result is different? Yes. Do I agree with him not playing Raya? I think I do. I think I understand it. I think it's accepted. They also played their cup keeper, and that didn't come back to haunt them. I mean, he kept him in it early on. So it similar to tactics and things like that. If it comes off, it's a masterclass. If it doesn't, it's a disaster class. There's no real middle ground. The Kepa choice in the end was a disaster class. But he starts with Kepa. I expected that, but I just wasn't sure. I said it would be Hincapié and White, and it was. Saliba and Gabriel. Zubimendi, Rice. I said Eze. We'll get to that. And I said Trossard, Saka, and I said Havertz. But I wasn't sure if maybe it had to be Gyökeres. So for me, the two up in the air ones for me were the goalie situation and the forward situation. In the end, the one that I leant towards, which was Gyökeres and Kepa, did indeed happen. But the news of Eze, the leak that came out maybe 40 minutes before team news, that Eze wasn't even in the squad, and nor was Timber. And we kind of expected Timber. We thought Odegaard might make the bench. He didn't. But Eze completely out of the squad that was quite jarring. that was the first time where I went, oh. And I wasn't confident going in. I just felt it was a 50-50 chance. I believe we are better. And once I saw that Eze news, I went, and I saw there, you look at City's team news that came out, and they got Trafford in goal. Obviously, Donnarumma's kept him in a lot of games. Unbelievable keeper. I think they had a centre-back pairing of Ake and Kusanov, I believe, and then it was O'Reilly and Nunes, Rodri, Bernardo, Cherki, Doku, Semenyo, and Haaland. And I just looked at it, and we all kind of went, three of their back four aren't the correct three of back four. Do you know what I mean? They're missing their three best defenders outside of O'Reilly. Then you think, they're playing Cherki in the middle there with Semenyo and Doku, similar to what they did at Madrid, but not quite. But you just thought, that's so attacking. They're so aggressive. We should be able to outrun them in midfield. And obviously, it's so much to unpack here. Couldn't be further from the truth. But you think maybe we could outrun that midfield. Maybe we could kind of get at them in there and kind of retain the ball a bit more than what we expected, as long as we can stem those wildly good attacking players. So when you kind of look at the two teams, and obviously I didn't mention it there, but Eze wasn't in the squad, so Havertz was playing in the 10. Because there's no other options in that position, in all fairness. But you kind of went, they've gone all out attack. Our team doesn't. There's a lack of creativity. Saka's obviously not having his best season. Havertz and Gyökeres are good at what they do, but as a combination of 10 and 9, you can't imagine you're going to get the through balls and stuff that you do get from Odegaard and or Eze. Trossard on the left, which I think everyone would be happy with. I know there's a lot of conversations about Zubimendi, and I do think something changed about 3 months ago, maybe around that United game. He's taking less risk. Maybe he's also, he's not trying to pick the ball up in dangerous areas, which he was doing so well in the first half of the season. Maybe a little confidence knock. But we've also become a double pivot team again. And if you remember the last couple of years, that was kind of one of our main annoyances was once Rice and Partey started to sit, and it wasn't just Rice kind of going box to box. And the last couple of months I've noticed it is a double pivot now. It's not Rice crashing the box. Rice isn't getting those goals and the shots. I know he scored literally in the week, but he's not doing the things he was doing in the early part of the season. And what he was doing in that, remember 2 years ago when we had that unbelievable run from January to the end of the season, and you remember him crashing the box multiple times and being higher up the field, and we've just got deeper generally. So when you're not playing a recognised 10 and you've got a double pivot, you're almost playing with a double pivot there, and then not a pivot, but I mean a double pivot of centre forwards, and then you've got wide men sitting outside. It's a hole. It's a polo. It's a donut. It's there's a missing gap, and this did come back to haunt us. That kind of lack of cohesion, or I don't know what the word would be. Maybe connection between the 10 and the rest of the midfield, and there's a part of it that could have worked, and it was working, and we'll get into that shortly. But they were the teams, and you kind of generally thought, well, they're probably going to pepper us a little bit because of how good their attack is. But if we can get free, we should be able to create some danger, but we should also be able to retain the ball because our team looked like a better team overall with the defence and everything. But they just had way more firepower. And you couldn't be further from the truth because obviously by the end of the game, you look back and Arsenal had 4 clear chances. City had 1. They scored 2. Obviously, the goalie puts the ball in the back of his net, essentially. But so you kind of think, well, how did we stem such a great-looking, attack-minded team that Man City put out to 1 clear chance in a game? But we managed to get 4 clear chances, 2 coming in the first 5 minutes, and then the other 2 coming late in the second half. What happened there in the middle there? Do you know what I mean? Like why, how could you look at those 2 teams and we all kind of went, well, Arsenal are like a whole team, probably going to keep the ball, good defence. And then City, you go all out attack, they're probably going to have a lot of shots, a lot of chances. But if we can get at their defence, we should be able to create a chance. How did that not look like what it looked like, if you know what I mean? So starting off, the first couple of minutes, I think we looked really good. We definitely started the better of the 2. We had a lot of the ball. And then that really nice kind of bit of play. White kind of has a heavy touch, puts it through Rodri's legs. I think it's Zubamendi. Plays it through to Havertz for a 1-on-1. He tries. Trafford kind of shuts down the area. Nice save. Comes out to Saka. He gets blocked. And then Saka again blocked. And it goes out. And you just think, God, we're at it here. Like, within 5 minutes, we've created 3 good chances. We call that 1 good chance, really. Maybe 2. But there's 3 chances in there to score. Very good chances to score. So you kind of feel good. And then I'd say the first 30 minutes, the only thing I'd say is it was an even game. We were shading the chances. They were shading the possession. But in that time, we were getting some corners. They got a couple. We were attacking well. Gyökeres was doing really well, kind of holding the ball up and cutting it back. And you kind of felt like a goal was coming on our end for that first 35 minutes. The only other thing that happened in that 35 minutes, I would say, is Hincapié made like a rash kind of tackle. And in real time, I thought, oh my God, he's going to get sent off here. And then he got booked. And then they showed it again, and he doesn't even touch him. And that was, in the end, this fed into their game plan anyway. Or this is where the game plan really, really changed for City, where they kind of went, all right, there you go, there's the target. And I'll explain that in a sec when we talk about tactics, because we'll kind of talk about the game, and then we'll talk about what went wrong and the tactical part of it. But he gets booked. Bernardo makes 3 fouls in quick succession, and then there was a 4th that he doesn't end up giving away a foul, but it was clearly a foul. And clearly the ref thought, well, if I blow up now, I'm gonna have to book him for the accumulation. He obviously didn't want to, but the fact that he managed to escape that first half without a booking is just beyond me. And again, it doesn't really change matters because with the position he's in, maybe he can't get in and around us as much, but there's an element of where Hincapié's position is, and that booking is really not great for him. It's something you've got to be careful. And when you're trying to mark Semenyo and you've got Trossard not really digging in and kind of doubling up with him, he was in a bad spot there. And Semenyo did glide past him, didn't he, on that one occasion and cross it, and Haaland was inches away. But really good defending from Saliba. Another opportunity was another one at the back post where Ben White and I want to say it might have been Saliba. I think it was Saliba and Ben White both kind of like ease him out, so he has to header it up. But just half chances on the crosses. And that was when around the time that the game turned to that kind of 35, 40-minute spell. And we just got deeper and deeper. And I thought, oh, I don't like this. And I thought, I get it. You can't be on the offense for 90 minutes. You do have to have spells. And we're very good at kind of dropping into shape and just nullifying a game for 5-10. And then you go again. It gets to halftime, so it's hard to know, are we going to go again? You think, do you know, after halftime, this is notoriously where we are best. We come out of the half, and instantly we're under pressure again, and we are deep. We got Gyökeres on the end of the D at our own box, and you're thinking, so what was the conversation at halftime? Like, what you did at the end of that half was good, let's carry on. But either way, it didn't look good. It didn't look promising. And then there was that moment, obviously, with Doku over the top. Kepa comes out, he lets it bounce. Doku goes past him, he touches him. Then he kind of claws at him, kind of puts his like pincers around him. Doku eventually, I think, does he go down? I don't even know if he goes down, but Kepa gets a booking and it's a free kick. We're very lucky that doesn't end up in the box. It's not a red card. I really don't think it is a red card, but there is days where you've seen that kind of thing given as a red and you think, oh my God, here we go. And that was the first time where, other than Gary Neville kind of freaking everyone out with the, you know, he was right to highlight the moments in which Kepa just rolling the ball under his feet and nothing happening. And he was right to highlight the fact that all the set pieces take a while. I understand that. But he's highlighting it for the wrong reasons. The Kepa part, what he should have been highlighting was the tactical battle that was going on, why he had that ball. And early in the half, if you remember, Kepa kind of held on for it for like 30, 40 seconds. And City did nothing. And this will come into the tactical part of it. And he was like, well, I just don't understand why he's doing that. And it's like, well, you got to remember, like, also he's giving the coaching staff the ability to now take a screenshot of that and go, what are we looking at? They got their iPads. They can then go, all right, what we need to do, we need to get this message onto him. He needs to do this. And also he's looking for the pass. We have a game plan. Whether it's going to plan or not is irrelevant. Kepa's still going to go by the kind of the steps in which he was told to in the briefing, I'm sure, where it was like, you know, when you get here, they're going to do this. You're going to have to do this. So when he gets that ball and he's rolling the ball, he goes, they're not doing what they said. I do not know where to go. So he's now thinking for himself, going, all right, well, I need to try and get back to the plan, but could I draw them out? And they're not getting drawn. They're not coming towards me. So should I try this, you know? So that's what he should have been highlighting. Instead, he was just highlighting that it creates nerves. And it doesn't, because we've seen it all season. Rare does this. Rare's distribution is unbelievable. And again, we'll get to that in the tactical part. But that was the first time when we thought, oh, this Kepa decision might not be the best decision. And then they just kind of kept the ball for another 10 minutes, I'd say. And we were kind of, me, Joe, and our dad were watching this, Joe, and we were kind of all saying the same thing, which was their press is triggered by the left. They're funneling it down the left to Hincapi because they believe that Hincapi can't do anything with it, which is probably correct. So they're just leaving him open. So they're basically just making a wall and going, you have two options. You can't really play into your midfielders because they can't turn on the ball, because Arsenal are a no turn on the ball team in midfield. Then you've got the option of left back, which we're leaving open for you, or you can go long, where we've got four defenders and you've got Havertz and Gyökeres looking. And if you remember, there was one time we went long to Havertz. He knocks it on to Gyökeres. And this happened later on in the game, a little bit higher up the field, where Trossard knocked it over to Calafiori, and this is when we hit the post. So their plan was to do that. Their plan was very similar to the reverse of what Liverpool used to do to City, and what what Arsenal did to City. But City made use of it. So I don't know if you remember, but for a very long time, City, the last couple of years, not last year, but the years before, do you remember they were beating us quite comfortably, but not 4-5-0, it's just like 1 or 2-0. And if you remember, their plan was they just stopped playing out from the back because they knew we were pressing. So they would just leave De Bruyne up with Haaland. And De Bruyne would drop into that giant void that we had left because our six and our eight had joined our other eight and the front three to press. So there's a giant hole, which City all dropped obviously naturally to kind of protect themselves. But De Bruyne wouldn't. He would just sit in that vacated spot. They would knock it over the top. Ederson would just pop it into that gap. De Bruyne would flick it on, and then Haaland was away 1-on-1 with the defender. Just had to beat the defender and then get a goal. And they beat us that way. And everyone was saying, well, Pep plays a certain style 36 games a year. And in 2 games a year, he does this thing where he just pops it long and De Bruyne flicks it on to Haaland. Essentially, that's what he did to us, the reverse. And all we had to do was hit it over them, over the press. And we had the perfect actual... we actually had a very good personnel to do this, which was just pop it over, Havertz flicks it on, Gyökeres is then 1-on-1 with the centre-back that he's with. All Havertz had to do is drop into that pocket and Kepa had to pick him out. Whether they could do that, I don't think they can because the personnel wasn't right in goal. And again, we'll get to that. But either way, it gets to 60 minutes. We're screaming at the TV, please change the left-back because if you put Calafiori in that left-back spot, there's no way. One, Hincapie's struggling to defend because he's on a booking. But also, they're allowing him as the outlet. What you don't want to do is have Calafiori as an outlet. That's not what they need. There's absolutely no benefit to City is Calafiori being on that field because he will run into that gap that they're leaving for him and he will progress the ball up the field and go and overlap, which is not what Hincapie's game is. So you're sitting there going, please bring Calafiori on. We need that bare minimum. Bare minimum that needs to happen. The other option is bring Saka and Phil, get Havertz off, get Madueke on, get Martinelli on, get someone fresh out wide. Shortly after that, they get kind of an overlap on that side where they're targeting now because of the mixture of Hincapie being on the booking and Trossard not helping them out at all. They just kept going down that side. Eventually, we'll get an overlap. They get one, so they're not a dangerous one, and they kind of drive a lifting ball across the goal. And Kepa tries to be kind of proactive, which ironically, I think if he doesn't even get involved, I think that ball goes up, and it goes out for a throw. It's rising. It's not an arching ball. It's not a crossed, weighted ball. It's not a volleyed over. It is driving upwards and at rate, which is why he fumbles it. But he comes out, he runs almost to his near post to kind of at full stretch collect it at its kind of. You're supposed to collect it at its highest point. It's not. It's on the rise. Which is a first kind of mistake from a goalkeeper, and it just drops in behind him and. There's still a bit of work to do. Zubimendi's working O'Reilly. O'Reilly does a good old tug on Zubimendi to pull him out of the way. But it's not enough for a free kick. And, fair play to the left back to be in that position and also be alert and to be that kind of ready in case that were to happen. And he nods it into an empty goal. And they get the goal. And you think, well, maybe you now need to make those changes. And the next couple of minutes, you're thinking, what are we waiting for? Because nothing changed after that goal. They carried on with that possession, and we were kind of just sitting in that shape. And then you start seeing Calafiori and Madueke getting ready, and you're thinking, all right, we do need to get this change, but we need to get it on now. They circle that ball down that exact same side again. They cross it, and this one's actually a very well worked goal. And O'Reilly again for a brace gets across his man and headers it back across goal. And it's 2-0, and that's 4 minutes apart, 2 goals. That's essentially curtains at that point because I don't think you're going to overturn a 2-0 deficit. And you can literally see the subs waiting to come on. You're thinking, well, you did it. It happened too late. And then once they come on, the game does open up again a little bit. And this is when we have that chance where Trossard hits the post. Jesus later on in the game when he comes on, he heads it back across goal, hits the bar. There's a Gyökeres penalty claim there that they never showed. There was a longer check on it. Even when they showed the replay of the Jesus chance 2 or 3 times, they never extended it to that moment. So I have no clue what happened with Gyökeres thing, but there was a long old check on it, but they would not show us the replay, which is very interesting and very frustrating because I'm sure, from looking at it in real time, I didn't think there was much in it. It looked like almost Gyökeres kicked someone else. But you'd think you would just at least show it, considering it was a long VAR check. So we do, Calafiori is driving us up there, but the body language is really odd. And, you got Madueke and Saka kind of mistiming passes and not looking at each other and kind of like, not arguing, but kind of heads down. And the atmosphere wasn't right. It didn't ever feel like there was going to be a you know a comeback on the cards. And again, like I said, we literally hit the post and the bar. So on a different day, does that just sit in the far end and then Jesus puts that in, or Gyökeres, that Gyökeres one from the bar kind of comes in front of him and he heads it into an open goal, like similar situation to them. Yeah, like for as bad as we were in that last 15 minutes, we hit the post and the bar. We didn't really. The only thing I'd say is, other than the first 5 minutes, we didn't test Trafford. But the big negative on all of this is City never tested Kepa. They tested him with a cross, which they didn't expect him to come out and try and claim. He gives them a goal. Then the second one, he has no chance in the whole matter. It's just a well-played piece of football. Other than that, they do not test him. They do not create a chance. They do not create anything. They have a lot of the ball. And again, people are saying, yeah, but if you watch it, City deserve to win. Oh, I 100% agree. I think City were the only team looking to win beyond 35 minutes. I think in the first 30 minutes, I thought, we're better than them. We just need to take this by the horns. And we didn't. We did the opposite. We all sat back and went, oh, maybe we're getting too big for our britches. That was the feeling I got there. And that's what I don't like about that mentality is it felt like for 30 minutes we went toe-to-toe, but anyone watching that would go, yeah, Arsenal are the better team. And even the commentators were saying we felt it. We just need to get that goal. And it didn't. And then just out of nowhere, I don't know what it was. It was just almost the Hincapié booking. Just all of a sudden it was like, all right, everyone get in shape. We got ahead of ourselves. And then that kind of just never came out of us. We never got back out of that gear. And I have this issue with sometimes we go 1-0 up and get into that position. And we can never get back out of it. Like you get to 50 minutes, we score. In a game we're dominating, we just couldn't get a goal. As soon as we get that goal, we drop into that shape. And you think that's fine if you're just going to weather the 5-minute storm after you've scored, because we don't want to concede 5 minutes. But what happens is we end up staying in it. And then if they score in like 85 minutes, we can't actually get back into that gear due to changes and just mentality shift. And we did it with no reason. That was what was odd. And we never truly got back out of it. The changes were a bit messy, obviously. He got the changes so right last week with Dalman and all the people that came on there. The Calafiori Madueke one was the right decision. It was just 5 minutes too late. I would have made it at half time. It was so clear in the first half that I would have made them at half time. I don't know what message that sends when he's talking about locker room cohesion. But for me, it was 5 then, and then it was half time or it was 60 minutes. And he started getting them ready after they scored. And I just think, if you'd done that 5 minutes earlier, again, if Kepa doesn't drop the ball, City never, other than the goal that comes shortly after that, when they're about to make changes, they didn't create anything. And we've been told for years as Arsenal fans, possession means nothing. It doesn't matter if you have the ball for 90 minutes. It's about who scores the goals. And again, they had the ball and they scored the goals. But you look at XG, and I think we beat them on XG. There was 4 major chances for Arsenal and 1 major chance for them. If you don't consider the first one, not just us, an error leading to a goal. Without an error, it's not a good chance. It's a lofty, it's a high rising cross that's going nowhere that becomes a very good chance and an open goal because of a goalie mistake. So take away that one, the second goal, and does that second goal happen if the first one doesn't? I don't know. But they created nothing. They didn't have any ideas. They were out of the game. They were locked out. As much as I didn't like what we were doing, it was very effective in stopping them from creating anything. But once that mistake happens, you have to be proactive. You have to, during the celebrations here at Calafiori Madueke, change it. Gets to 2 minutes, and Arteta looked dejected. You see Madueke almost saying to him as it went in, like, "No, we got this." And Arteta just turned away, and I thought, that's not what you want. You got to be like, yeah, all right, you need to get on. You need to get on the ball. You need to change this game. We've got 20. We still had, with injury time, 30 minutes. It's a lot of time to change a game. So there was mentality things I didn't like. Now, if we get to the tactical part of it, and I find it such a hard game to analyse because I think 35 minutes compared to the rest of the game, I feel so differently. I feel good about the first 35 minutes. I hate the second 60 minutes. But then I look at it statistically and kind of what I actually saw, which was 4 major chances to 1. And you go, yeah, maybe we were better than what we thought. But then the eye test is so different. And I think we were just naive. I think we were outclassed. I think we were humbled a little bit by, the teacher beating the student. I think it was a coaching tactical thing. And again, on any other day, we scored that early one. Later on, we score those two. I genuinely believe on a different day, if we score the early one, I think the confidence rises. They come out of their shell. They can't do the tactic they end up doing. Also, winning that foul off Nkappi for not touching anyone completely set the tone of the game, which is so frustrating because their plan from the get-go, I think, was targeting Nkappi offensively and defensively. Not because he's a bad player, but they just thought that was the trigger. And we have triggers with them. We were doing the same. When I think it was when Ake got the ball, we were triggering the press. Every team does this. Every major team does this. So it's not an indictment on Nkappi. But once the booking happened, it just meant, all right, every attack down that side. And when we press, leave him as the only outlet. So what they were doing was, again, like I said earlier, Arsenal did this to City a lot. Liverpool did this to City a lot. And to varying effects, Liverpool did very well with it. We didn't, because there's a very simple solution that, annoyingly, we didn't adapt to. But I think it's more of a personnel issue. And the personnel issue comes back to the guy who gave them a goal and also couldn't get us up the field. And this is why in the modern game, goalkeepers are so important. But what they were doing was, when the goalkeeper got the ball, they put a wall of four. If you saw it, it was Doku, Semenyo, Cherki and Haaland in a row of four. Nearly man for man for our back four. But on the right, Semenyo was coming infield and slightly inside a little bit. So he's like slightly down from the rest of the team, leaving you almost like, when you're young and you're in goal and you're in a penalty shootout and you're in goal and you kind of stand slightly to the left, but not crazily to the left to make him just hit it the other side. Just gently, like as if you're trying to say to him, oh, I don't realise I've left that side open, but you're doing it because you're going to commit heavily to that dive. That's what they're doing. They're just going, go on and play it to the left back. I dare you. Or go long. But with this tactic, because if you look as well, Zubimendi and Rice are now kind of standing behind Haaland and Cherki. And then you could see them going left and right to kind of, and a lot of people are saying Zubimendi's not moving. He is. It's just, where do you want him to go? Because he can go stand between, for example, Doku and Haaland, and in between Ben White and Saliba. If he plays that ball into him there, that triggers the press. So as soon as that ball goes into his feet, what are Doku and Haaland going to do? Is one of them is going to run directly to Zubimendi, and his options are a flick around the corner to Ben White, who's just been vacated by Doku. Very dangerous, because if Doku gets it, they're in. He could turn out, which we're a no-turn team, similar to City. You do not turn 180 degrees and go. That's not in our game plan. It's a dangerous thing to do, and there's a lot of things to it. Or you're gonna misplace the pass. It's gonna be hit heavy. He's gonna miscontrol it. It's gonna be short. Haaland is onto it. So he can't really do anything. So even if Zubimendi comes in there, he can't do much with that. So he has to kind of stay beyond that press, because that's where the space is. Rice the same. And if you want them both to go into those kind of holes, what's going to happen is Rodri, and this is what would have happened, I think, if Raya was playing, is Rice and Zubimendi would have dropped in there, not to get the ball, but to pull up Rodri and Bernardo. And then when they come up, this is what City did to us. Raya would have just dinked it over the top, because beyond those players, we would have had Trossard, Saka, Havertz, Gyökeres, all in that kind of area. They would have had a back four, so it'll be 4 and 4, essentially, if you can draw them up. And that's what City would do to us. And what would happen is our fullbacks would get kind of tuck in. And because we invert a fullback a couple of years ago, he would have gone involved in the press as well. So they would end up with a 4 and 3. So the flick on that. And you can also send players back there to kind of pull them all the way up. So they're doing that on purpose, and again, the different parts, what do people want Rice and Zubimendi to do that? All they can do is stand in there. They know they can't turn. So Bernardo and Rodri just stand 5 yards behind them, going, I dare you to nick it over that wall and into that little space, because that's a danger pass. As soon as you dink that over, it's hard to control because you're dinking it. Rodri or Bernardo will then jump up onto your back. If you miscontrol that, you've got 4 players towards your own goal of your own team and their team, plus 2 players jumping on you. And again, if you're very quick, you nod that on beyond Rodri, who's oncoming. He goes to Havertz, he holds it up, and then you're in business. And that is the game plan. That is the way out. The problem is when the goalkeeper's distribution is he wants to be able to do a 5 or 10 yard pass, left or right. He does not want to pierce the middle. You know, when you've seen Raya do those ones where he hits it between the two centre-backs and the two players that are in that wall, right into Zumendi's feet. And he plays a quick one to Rice, who's sweeping, like almost like a jet sweep in NFL. And then he hits out to Ben White now, who's away from his man, and Doku's now tracking back. That's how you beat it. The only ways to do it is those really brave piercing holes through the midfield. The midfielder got to be brave, one touch. The fullbacks then go, and then they're turned running towards their own goal. And then the pros and the cons of what they're doing is that we are very dangerous at that point, and they do not want us to do that. But once they saw Kepa was the goalie, I think he went, game done. Easy. Because Kepa can only do a 5-10 yard pass either side of him to the fullbacks. He is terrified to go to the centre-backs because obviously they've got men on him. He cannot pierce through them with a grass-cutting pass to our midfielders because he knows how many goals have we seen given away like that? We literally saw it in the Sunderland Newcastle game for the Gordon goal. He knows he hasn't got that ability. Raya does. He doesn't. So then his only other option is I'm going to go long. And what City have done is the way they've done that press, it's a 4-2-4, is they've got 4 and 4. So they're going, all right, well, loft it to the right wing and O'Reilly is going to just header it above Saka. He's got the run on Saka. He's going to header it. And the thing is, it's such a danger pass because once you loft that up towards Saka, who's got their eyes on the ball the whole time? O'Reilly. Who's going to then header it? What way is it going? We saw it happen late in the game when Kepa kept doing it. He kept sending it down to that right-hand side to Saka. O'Reilly would win that header, go to Doku, and then they were turned. They were 5-on-5 or 5-on-4 even because we had committed. So it was just a danger pass. All right, go to the left. Who was over there? Trossard, and he was getting marked by Nunez. Much bigger midfielder, just winning those headers because you're lofting it in. Then you had, obviously, the centre-backs. This is where we actually got some joy, which is Gyökeres and Havertz didn't allow Ake and Kusanov an easy go of it. Because when we did break it in the first half, do you remember when we broke away and Kusanov made that really good tackle and then I think Doku hit someone in the face by accident? It was like accidental, just turned into him. It's panic station. So like if you do break it, it's panic. But I think, for example, everyone was saying, well, now we know the game plan they're going to do at the Etihad. No. Well, when Raya's in that goal, they're not doing that. They know they're not because when they had Ederson and we did that, that was naive on our part because we didn't realise how good Ederson was with his feet. So he's going to pick out someone's, because there's a lofting it to Saka where he's got the header to win against O'Reilly. And do you know what I mean? Like, how are you going to get that under control? Whereas with Ederson or Raya, he's doing those kind of like, they're quick, they're 8 foot in the air, they're undercut so that there's no extra spice on the ball when you control it. He's undercutting the ball hard and just over the head, straight to Saka's chest. Saka then chests it. Ben White is then released from Doku because obviously he's triggered by Saka actually getting the ball. He knocks it to Ben White. The midfielders then are, on that side, probably Zubimendi, are looking for it to feet. Saka's now gone beyond O'Reilly. Now they're in trouble. There is no way in any way that City played that same style when Raya's in goal. And if Raya was starting, if right before kickoff we changed it, there was an injury to Kepa, they wouldn't have played that way. They know that. They would have had a game plan for either keeper. And the other one was the funneling down the left. They were basically saying, go on then, I dare you to play it in Hincapié. And we played it in Hincapié. Hincapié then plays it to the goalkeeper. Then they press even harder because now you're in a panic. Now you are going to loft it high and then the defenders are going to win the ball and then the field tilt is downwards towards the goal you're shooting at for City. So they were playing it in Hincapié. He was going up the line to Trossard who wasn't able to hold it up. And again, that is the option because if it's not a bad option for Kepa because if they're leaving him available, he should be able to go up to the line to Trossard because albeit being 2 passes takes longer, they can get into a different shape once you kind of move it on. Along the floor, it's a lot easier to control for Trossard. So therefore, then Rice can turn and start running up the field and looking for 1-2s. The problem is it's still 4-on-4 or 5-on-5 or 6-on-6. So you're going to be under pressure wherever you pick the ball up because it took 2 passes to get to the point where Raya would have made it and won. So that was the tactical part. The annoying part is we weren't savvy to it. I think there's a chance if he got to 65 minutes and the goals didn't happen, I wouldn't have been surprised if he didn't make the change and Raya came on. I think once he makes the mistake, he knows he can't pull him. Like, you look at Kalinski over at Spurs, you can't do that to a keeper. Like, I think if he doesn't make the mistake, he pulls him and goes, it's tactical, and Kepa goes, yeah, I can see that. Like, I can see what they're doing, and I can't deliver that for you. And I don't think there'll be any issues. Once he makes the mistake, albeit Kepa's a professional, he'd understand, like, yeah, I know the mistake happened, but really I know what was coming because I could see what they were doing. I couldn't deliver what you needed from me. So that could have been a big change, and I think Arteta talked about years ago, didn't he, where he said he would make a tactical goalkeeper change. This is what he meant, and he just didn't do it, and I don't disagree with it. I think he did see the trophy as like a bonus. I really do, because if you're dead serious on winning that, you play Raya there, and we also play different. And even afterwards, he said he would have always picked him, and he'd pick him again. And as nice as that is, and it keeps people like Kepa happy, and it keeps the team, I say happy, I'm sure they would rather all have winners' medals right now. It does send a message that it's a team, it's a family. But it really felt, I think if Raya played that game, I think he stops the second goal physically. The first goal never happens. And I think that their press stops working very quickly because he breaks it 2 or 3 times, and we either get a goal, get a couple bad chances, and Pep goes, stop that. But again, like I said, Pep wouldn't have been naive enough to do that press if Kepa was in the goal, because he knows he's as good as Edison and people like that with his feet. Annoyingly, student beats the teacher. When we did this to City, we were naive because they had too good a goalie to be doing that for. Because you can do that against goalkeepers. Like, for example, if you do that against Newcastle, they don't like to play out back from the back, but Ramsdale, he won't be able to deliver, so you will cause problems. But if you do that against City with Edison, Raya at Arsenal, you will get bad results because they will just pick you apart. So it's annoying that we're on the naive side of doing that tactic and be on the receiving end of that tactic. But it was definitely the teacher just kind of humbled the student a little bit. I really did feel that way because we didn't adapt, and when we did, it was too late. And again, the quality of our squad and our team is clear because we were not in that game as far as possession. We were not in that game mentally. It didn't feel like we were ever truly in the fight outside that first 30 minutes. But we still hit the post and the bar. And that is either an indication of City being a little bit fragile defensively, hence what we've seen in the league where they're losing 2-0 wins and 1-0 wins and turning them into draws. Or it's an indication that we're very good because even on our worst day, because I think that was one of our worst days this year, we create 4 very good chances against the second or first best team in the league. And that's the positive side I'm going to take from this, because here's the other positives. I said it on the other show. Watching them pick up that medal is going to be fuel. Arsenal will use that. Arteta will use that as fuel. They will take that as motivation. I'd much rather win the title and win the Carabao, and he says, well, did you enjoy that? Well, let's do something bigger. I'd rather that as the motivation, but it'll be motivation, and we watched all the players stare at it. That's big from, the standpoint of, I don't know, like maybe going forward. It could go one of 2 ways. It could have been a mental shift. It might actually have been a mental shift and City go, we're good, we're better than them, we're going to go school them. And we do get shaky. We drop points against Bournemouth. We start doing that and City do start winning out. And I said at some point City will win out. Whether it's 1 game to go or 10 games to go, they will at some point just win out. I just don't know how long it will last because they're not the City of the last 10 years. The other part, the other positive to take from it is, like I said, I think that was one of our worst days this year. You kind of want a worst day to come in a different way, maybe at Mansfield, but you still win, but it's really bad. You don't want it to be in a cup final against your direct rivals. But this year we've proven that we played a couple games. We lost to Liverpool. We went on, I think it was like 11-game streak without losing. We lose to Villa, late goal by Buendia. We go on like an 11, 12, 13-game streak. We lose to Man United, and we all feel dejected. Like, it felt like throughout the season, little armour's getting taken off. Like at the start, I think we didn't expect to beat Liverpool, and we didn't expect to be in a title race. But by the time we got to Villa, I think we thought Villa in a title race, and we got a bit nervy, and we thought, oh, I thought our defence wasn't capable of this kind of like drop into panic, lose late goals, don't clear the ball. And we went, oh, maybe we're not as good defensively as we thought we were. Then you get the United game and go, but we're a fortress. At the Emirates, we do not lose. Then we kind of got beat. And we went, oh, okay, it's not a fortress there. So our defence isn't as good as we think it is. Now the fortress is gone. Then we've gone on an undefeated streak since that game until this week. And then I think what's come with that is, are they going to catch us? So every defeat comes with a question, but they respond better than any team I've seen from defeat. Because the feeling I had after Villa was, I didn't think we were necessarily in the title race at that point. I think we were top or whatever, but it was so long to go. You just think, well, maybe it's not going to be plain sailing in a 2-horse race, or is it going to be our year? You think those things. By United, we were in a good position, and to lose that felt big, especially at home. But they responded. They in all competitions they went on an undefeated run of, I think it was 13 games, and then I said it on the podcast, we're due a loss, and if the loss had to be here, Sporting Lisbon, or Bournemouth, this is the game I would lose. I said before the game when Lewis reached out, he said, "Are you nervous?" And I said, "I'm not nervous. I'd be more nervous for Bournemouth at home in 3 weeks, because that is the one. The league is the one. You can lose that cup game. I'm happy to lose that cup game. We cannot lose to Bournemouth, because we need to get to the Etihad with a 9-point lead in some capacity. Because once we're beyond that game, it's not in their hands anymore. They can't dictate anything. Whereas if you drop points there, they beat Chelsea, then we go to Etihad, they beat us. It's in their hands. They win that game in hand. I think they'll be level, I believe, in some capacity. And then with 5 games going, you start getting a bit clammy. You start getting a bit weird, and they they do the opposite. They get into focus mode. They go robotic. Let's win. Then you're in trouble. So this is the loss, and and this feels really, every time we lose, it feels really catastrophized over on socials, but it does also internally feel very jarring, and it may be because we're losing less than we've ever lost. We've lost the same amount as the unbeaten season, things like that, and you think we haven't felt defeat. There's been a couple of draws that have felt like defeat, but this is our 4th loss, so I think maybe we take it worse because we're not used to it almost. But every time we do that and we go, oh, I don't know, mentally wise, they go on a undefeated streak. And if that is the loss, and we go on someone said, if we go on a 14-game undefeated streak, it means that the next loss is going to be the Champions League or the FA Cup final or the last day in the Premier League. So, hey, maybe stuff's wrapped up by then. Let's just hope. But football's football, and finals are finals. And for us, if that was the blip, or the one where you go, like with the Man United game and the Villa game, it felt like we didn't turn up. We made mistakes. We were silly, maybe a bit naive. If that's going to happen every 10, 15 games, I'm all right with it being there. And the good signs underneath it were we created better chances than them, and we were not in that game. And we still did. And it didn't feel like we were going to, but we still did. So that's the positives I take away. The positives also is we don't have to think about it for 2 weeks. Just forget about it. Don't look at socials for a couple of days. It's international break. Breathe. And then we'll come back straight into an FA Cup quarterfinal against Southampton away. Then Sporting Lisbon away. Then we've got Bournemouth at home in the league. Sporting Lisbon at home in the Champions League. Then Man City in the league. So those 5 games in the first 2 weeks of being back in a couple of weeks are going to be so crucial to how this season ends. Because everyone keeps going, we're still fighting on 3 fronts. That was a final. We were 90 minutes away from taking a trophy. We still got to get through Southampton. And a Wembley trip against Liverpool, City, Chelsea, someone, to get to an FA Cup final. Then have to deliver a final against Chelsea, City, Liverpool, someone like that again. Over in Champions League, we've got to get through Sporting, but we don't have to get through a 2-legged tie against Barcelona potentially to get to a final with Bayern Munich or PSG most likely, and then deliver again there. And all while beating people like Bournemouth and Fulham and Newcastle at home, and going to West Ham, beating Burnley at home, going to Crystal Palace and winning, going to the Etihad and getting a result. There's so much to happen. So there's that. There's a lot to unpack as far as that's concerned. Little injury things. Eza, they said he's going to need a scan in 6-7 days, and Arteta looked very spooked about that injury, which with Odegaard, we have no clue what's going on with Odegaard. That's a worry because, again, with our first choice goalie and a recognised 10, that game doesn't go that way yesterday. That's the unfortunate part. You have all this depth, but when your two 10s go, it's a nightmare. We're going to have to get them back. We need them back for the run-in. So hopefully he's been pulled from the England squad. I'm hoping that scan is 6-7 days. And then even if he has to miss Sporting away and Saints away from this game, because he went off halfway through midweek, I want to say. By the time City game or Bournemouth, it's about 3.5 weeks. He wouldn't have played football. So you'd hope for a smaller thing that he thought he said he was doing everything to get as a fit for this game. Tells me it can't be a 6-weeker, if you know what I mean. Like, it's got to be a couple of weeks. So maybe he misses Sporting, maybe he misses Saints, but I think we need him back for the Premier League and then that home Sporting and then City. We need Odegaard back. We need Raya playing every game now. We can't be doing that in the FA Cup. And we need to, do you know what I mean? Like, we need to just keep going. The other ones were Saliba pulled out of the French squad straight after the game, which was odd, and Lacroix's taken his place from Palace for an ankle injury. I'm assuming that could be a bit of dark arts, a little bit of just making sure he doesn't get hurt. So that's already Eze and that. One of the videos we saw of Declan Rice coming down the stairs from inside Wembley after getting his runners up middle, he can hardly move. It's a very worrying prospect because he's going to have to play 60 plus games this year, then go straight into a World Cup, then come straight back into potentially another 60 game season. You think that guy's body could be breaking down or on the verge of a major injury, touch wood, which is a real worry. Even Saka, he's not moving correct. So that's why this league's so important. Even if we go out of everything else, I think we just got to get it over the line. 7 games away from winning the league. All you got to do is win 3 of them. All we got to do is win 3 of them. That is the most important part. So the positives to take, guys, are we are still in 3 competitions. The league, we're still 9 points clear. They need to go to international, forget about this game and come back and just get back into that kind of robotic, melodic, win-win-win mentality we do seem to get into post losses, because we have a perfect example because we're not even in the Premier League for a week after we come back. Quarterfinal against Saints should be able to win. It's going to be awkward, but it should be able to win. Away at Sporting, just need a result. Any kind of draw that will feel like a win. A little win there, like a 1-0 win, will feel like a huge win. Then you've got the Bournemouth game. That's the big one. And then it just means that maybe if you win that one as well, that feeling in the club's going to be very much like, oh, we've come back straight back into win, win, win. And it's 3 different competitions. We're still in 3 competitions. And it puts the pressure back on everyone else. And that's what we need. But for now, enjoy your international. Forget about the Carabao Cup. Try and enjoy it. And we'll be back on Wednesday, Joe and I, with a little game, a little shirt number game from Arsenal history. Listen to us on iTunes and Spotify. Also, check out the Patreon. We do reviews, previews, any extra little tidbits anytime I want to jump on the mic. It's usually, you probably get about 5 episodes a week on the Patreon. It's about £6 if you go through the link below. Because if you go through the app to sign up, there's a tax, so it'd be like $7.50 or something, 7, whereas you should just pay your £6. So go through that link. You're also in a raffle to win a graded Arsenal trading card every single month if you're a paid Patreon. So please go over there. Please let your friends know about it. Please tell them about this podcast here on iTunes, Spotify, totally free, and give us a 5-star review. And Joe and I will be back on Wednesday for a little bit of what's a little comic relief, a little bit of fun, to kind of take us away from the madness of what's just happened. But we'll see you then. Still a great season. Bye-bye.